I'm hoping that the people that are in this meeting can hear me. We're going to kind of do a little bit of what we do with the kids. Can you thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome. All right. We're just going to wait a few minutes. We have, I think, 61 people registered for the call. So I'll kind of see. Hi, everybody. Once we get the group on.
Right. Hi, everybody.
Yay, Teresa, hopefully you pop on the head page. Yes, you do. Yay.
Yeah, I tried to get on the other way through the other link, and I think Peter was confused because I was trying to do two things at once.
I don't recall, Teresa, making the waiting room a thing, but apparently it is.
Okay.
So is walking through lots of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
But then I'll mute myself, everybody, so that the doorbell doesn't ring every single time someone comes in or goes out, because that can get pretty rough.
So, anyway, I'm glad it says that my phone is the host, which is bizarre. So, let me see if I can make you the host. Okay, I'm making you host, T. Yep. All right. Can you see stuff now?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So let's see, we've got, just gonna kind of, anyone who's got a picture on here, awesome. I don't have to question who you are. For those of you who don't have a picture on here, I'm gonna have to just kind of peek really quick to see who you are. It may seem like a little bit of overkill on the security, but we've had people popping into some of our Zoom classes. It's been interesting. So let's see. If Teresa, I think does it have that they can unmute themselves? So if I say a name and I don't know who you are, could you please just let me know? Because there's a couple people on here that are, your face isn't on here, but I don't know who Stacy's iPhone is. If you could unmute yourself and let us know who you are.
That's probably me, Stacy Suarez.
It is. Awesome. Thank you. How about Sheila? Who's Sheila's iPhone?
Harper and Ella's mom.
Perfect. Awesome. The rest, I believe, makes sense. I'm guessing is Shelly Wilson?
Yes, it is.
No problem. I don't mind that you're, I go to meetings all the time without my picture, so you guys are totally fine with that. Okay.
I'm going to admit Moto, although who is Moto? We don't know.
Someone's Moto?
Yeah, Moto G.
I don't see that phone, T.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to get started on a few things. We've got a whole slew of experience in this meeting right now where some of you have done All-Stars, you know, for like 8 years, and some of you, this is your very first thing. So
Elizabeth?
really
Elizabeth?
quick, yeah.
One moment, please. Whoever is Moto G on 5, can you please introduce yourself or write in the chat who you are, please?
They're trying to connect to the audio, so I don't even know if they heard you, Therese. You may have to repeat it again because I think the audio just connected for them. Whoever is Moto G5 Plus who just connected, could you identify yourself, please? And I think they just left.
The video is still there?
Yep, I see a video too. But
it's not me, is it? I'm pretty sure mine says Denise Motor Right.
It's not you, Denise. It's,
Okay.
I can see just the top of somebody's head. Teresa, I'm gonna let you deal with that, and I am gonna get started. Okay.
Yep.
So a couple of things. Because this is a Zoom meeting and it's really difficult, make sure you have a piece of paper and a pencil sitting next to you so that you can jot some stuff down. We don't have an all-star packet. Normally, when you come to this meeting, we have an all-star packet. We hand them out along with our private lesson forms and all that good stuff. We don't. Teresa and I started going through the all-star packet and said, there's too many things we don't know. There's just things that we need to figure out. And so we're going to go through everything that we do know. We're going to continue working on that packet this week. Obviously, it'll be out hopefully by the end of this week. There are things, and I think everybody in this group can understand that we can guess. And when we do guess, we'll maybe guess high, because a lot of your questions have to do with costs. And we can tell you that it will not cost more than what you did last year, but it may cost less because we have less classes in the summer. We'll probably do less competitions, and we'll get through all of that. When you do have a question, if you would not mind either jotting it down, because what we'll do is we'll go through a section, and then I will say, if you have a question about this section, put it in the chat. And then you will type up those questions, and then we will address those questions as best we can. Does that make sense? And then at the end, if you still have questions, you can put them in the chat, or if you're like, okay, I have this question, but I'm gonna feel like a crazy person saying this in front of the whole group, I just wanna email you later, that's absolutely fine. You can email it either one of us, but most of the stuff with the All-Star packet and that stuff you probably want to send to me. And if you don't know who I am, I would be shocked, but if you don't know who I am, I'm Elizabeth. So my address is easy to remember. Just email it to elizabeth@powerofdance.com. I will get it, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Those of you who sent me messages today and asked me questions, and then I did ask, hey, are you, and then I looked to see that you were registered for a meeting. I did not go through and email a bunch of answers back to you because I knew it would be addressing things at the meeting. So after the meeting, if you still have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, okay? I see, okay, so Teresa, you're still taking care of the waiting room and the other stuff. All right. So let's get started. So basically, if this is your first year doing All-Stars and you've never done it before, things are different for everybody else anyway. So there's like this brand newness to everything. But we want to give you a really quick overview of why you would even want your child to do All-Stars, because All-Stars doesn't mean that your kid is the best and therefore they're an All-Star. What it means is that we are trying to train your children to be All-Stars. The goal is to create a well-rounded athlete. I think everyone, especially since we've all been stuck at home with our kids, have really gotten to know what the value of being in extracurricular activities really is for kids. If your children are driving you crazy, I can say you are driving them crazy too, so just be aware. It goes both ways, but it's like, this is what this is all about. We are trying to teach your kids goal setting. We're trying to teach them how to be good individuals. We hold them accountable. We have them set goals. We teach them how to push themselves. We teach them how to push each other. We teach them that it's more important to do your best than to win. But if you don't shoot for the highest, then you're never going to make it there. These are things that we do for the kids, okay? Just like any other sport. What it does basically for your child's dancing is these are the best dancers at the studio, not because they think they're great, but because they train like crazy athletes. So these kids are amazing. And your kid, if it's their first year and you're not sure if you want to do it, they're going to train, crazy, and they're going to either love it and continue dancing, or they're going to be like, this isn't for me, okay? But the goal is to make amazing dancers, and that's what we do. I wish that I did have my packet, because Teresa and I have, a couple years ago, we sat down and really said, well, what are our top 10 things that we really want to teach these kids when they come to All-Star practice? And these are them. And if this sounds like something that you want your children to do, then All-Stars is probably the right path. And if not, then please don't do it. Number one, we ask that they show up, and they show up all the time, okay? If they don't come to practice, they should have a very good reason. Number two, they should give 100% of the time. So if we have kids who don't really feel like doing things all the time, they probably are not going to be recommended for All-Stars. Be responsible, take responsibility. 4, take care of your body, both inside and out. 5, be a team player. That really means putting the wants and goals of the team in sometimes ahead of yourself. That's hard because we all love our kids so much and they are amazing, but sometimes you have to teach them that, you know, the good of the team is what we really need to think about. Always show respect to everyone, including other teams. When we go to competitions, we expect our kids to cheer on the other teams. We are super proud of how we've done this in the last few years. Our All-Star team has won the Spirit and Sportsmanship Award at Nationals the last 2 years in a row, which has been incredibly unheard of. And it's really because the kids and the teachers, they have the most amazing sportsmanship, and their goal really is to make sure that everyone is having a good time and feels welcome. Number 7, the juniors and senior All-Stars, we will communicate directly with those kids, and we are trying to teach them that to gain some responsibility and pass it on to you. Younger ones, we are communicating with you, obviously. Be coachable, work towards self-improvement, stay focused on a goal, and then have a positive attitude and try new things. So those are the things, that we are trying to teach those kids. All right, so there were 3 levels of All-Stars that you saw when you were registering for this meeting. What are those levels even mean? So Teresa and I sat down at the end of last year, and we really kind of looked at what we were getting feedback about All-Stars. If you were on team last year, you are going to get what I would call like an exit survey, an end of the year survey from us that is going to say, what was your favorite thing? What was your least favorite thing? And we want to know who you are. So I know it's really tempting to make those anonymous, especially when you're giving us feedback that you think we might not like. But we want to know those things because some of you have said that, for example, we've got competition teams. That's what we've normally had, and prep teams. And Teresa and I said, you know, we've got a bunch of kids who are on prep teams who want to practice a little bit more. They want to be more serious, but they don't want to go to all the competitions because it's really a money factor. So one of the things that Teresa and I talked about was doing something called prep teams. Now, we didn't make up the prep team word. That's a USASF, that's an all-star word. So when we go to competitions, they have certain sets of rules they actually call them elite teams, which is what our kids would be, elite. We don't love that word, trying to teach the kids that no one's really elite, guys. Elite teams and prep teams. And the elite teams or our competition teams would be just like they've always been. And the prep teams would practice just as much and really get the training, but maybe not go to as many competitions and therefore cut down on the cost. Because when Teresa and I sat down and really broke down the cost, we were finding that travel was probably 2/3 the amount of the all-star cost, that it wasn't really the tuition and the costumes, which is what you think is costing a lot. Most of it is the travel and the competition expenses, how much it costs to go to competitions. So that's what prep team is. To put this in perspective, those of you who've had kids on Tiny Team or Rising Stars, that's been kind of what Tinies and Rising Stars have been, are pretty much prep teams. They didn't go to DX this year. They didn't travel super far away. They stayed relatively close to home. So we try to minimize the overnights. Now, if you decide that the competition is in Milwaukee and you want to spend a whole weekend in Milwaukee, well, that's your decision. That's fabulous. Go ahead and go for it. But, we're trying to keep it down. The performance teams would be just like they have been in the past. And that is the practice is back up. Competition teams, prep teams practice 2 times a week, and then they have ballet. Senior team practices 3 times a week. We are not going to change that, and I will tell you some really great news. So if you are a senior on this call, you're going to get this news before the rest of the seniors do. So there just was a brand new petition that came out, and I can see 3 of you right now on my screen, so I'm excited to see how you react to this. There is a petition that just went out and a vote that's being cast right now to allow dancers to take the stage 5 times at Worlds. Which is pretty, I know, which would be pretty amazing because I know. So I did tell Jaden and she was like, oh my God, she's freaking out because in years past, we've learned 5 routines and then had to choose which 4 would go. And it was like, oh, like heart-wrenching to try to give up one of those routines. This has not gone through yet, but it's the advisory board. We did cast a vote, and are on the advisory board, so we did get to cast a vote that said yes, yes. I literally said yes, 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 about 7 times. So, so they will practice 3 times a week. That's not going to change, as well as doing the crossover of kick. All right. So, difference of teams. Are there any questions before we go on with the difference between the teams? If there is, could you please put it in the chat? I'm telling you right now, like, this is so bizarre, having to sit here and talk to this many people and have dead silence. So it's okay, but there's like dead silence. All right, so teams, moving on. Okay, so how auditions are going to work. All right, so I did start filling this out. If those of you who are brand new, basically, besides the fact that there's the 3 different levels in skills, there's also different levels in age. We are an all-star studio, and it's not just something like a word that we made up. There is a United States All-Star Federation, and they do have a governing body, and they do give us rules. And so we have age breakdowns. Tiny team is ages 4 to 6. Now, I did put on there, I think they used to allow 3-year-olds, and I'm thinking, Teresa, did they stop allowing 3-year-olds to do it? Because they used to have tiny and like super tiny.
Yes, I believe so.
Well, we never had a 3-year-old anyway. I can't even imagine it. I can't imagine. But we have had 3-year-olds that turned 4 in the summer. In fact, we did just this last year. We have one of the girls on our tiny team was 3 at auditions, and she turned 4 in the summer. She was great. So, you know, we recommended her to team, and she did fantastic. So this, you know, it can happen. Actually, we had 2 4-year-olds last year, and they were both great. Minis is 9 and under, youth is 12 and under, juniors is 15 and under, and seniors is 18 and under. There is a bottom end to those ages, but we've never gone below that bottom end anyway, so it's kind of a moot point for me to even mention it. So like seniors is what, 12 to 18, Teresa?
Yes, it is now.
And I don't believe we've never put anyone younger than 12 on senior team. And even when we have had a 12-year-old on senior team, it was a really young person who was really young for their grade and then turned 13 like in the summer. But just so you know, there is an open division, and open is ages 14 and older, but I think that even may have changed this year. Am I correct on that, Teresa?
I'm sorry, I was trying to find something else.
Is open, this is kick, so it does affect people on this call. Is kick 14 and open or 13 and up? Is it 14 or 13?
It's now 13.
So open kick is now 13 and up, and that is a world's division. So if your child is going to be 13, and when's the cutoff date? Because that's an IASF category.
The cutoff date is in 2001. I'm gonna have to look it up again because they were just talking about rule changes on that. So
okay, so just keep in mind, this is something, they've actually been changing this stuff often. Because Worlds got canceled, they were changing some of the rules of age grids so that the kids that were on senior team or an open team that didn't get to compete, that they could go back and compete next year. Okay, now I got screen sharing from whoever's on that Moto Plus, Teresa.
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out who it was.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Oh, okay. Now you're okay. I was just going to boot you off.
I know. I'm like, how do I message on here?
It's okay. Now I know who you are. I was actually, your timing is impeccable because I was just about to boot you off because I have not heard from you. Okay.
Get rid of the hand. I just have to.
Yep. You just have to press on it.
You're going to say that you're going to want to mute her though so that it doesn't. There we go.
I got it.
Sorry.
Nope, we're good. Thank you. Sorry, Elizabeth, that's what I was trying to figure out as you were talking about, but I will actually research that again because it's not a August. I don't believe. So let me look into that while you're talking and you can continue. I'll let you know.
I think you muted Elizabeth.
Oh, Elizabeth, just one moment, please. You're muted. I did not mute you. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
I didn't touch it either. It's on my phone. I have 2 devices on right now. Anyway, it does affect the fact there are a few kids who are like 7th graders and maybe even 6th graders who are going to be that age. And so on the sheet on your All-Star audition form, when we ask you about senior team, realize that that also means open kick. And if you say yes to that child, like if you say yes, we could cross up for kick, because there are a few kids who are pretty good at kick and they're young, and you say yes to that, then they could possibly go to Worlds. So just be aware of that, because that's going to be, that's maybe sway your decision one way or the other of allowing your child to do that routine. The beauty is that at that age, they're still allowed to do junior kick, which is great. That's 15 and under. So there's just that overlap in there. Okay, so how auditions are going to work is this. First and foremost, Tinies will not be going through an audition process this year. They will, but having Tiny Team learn a routine off of a video and then have to come in and do it, oh my gosh. Like, Teresa and I looked at each other and went, I don't know how we're going to do that. Like, really, if your child was recommended for Tiny Team, we already think that they're going to do great on Tiny Team. We're looking for, can they keep a beat? Can they follow directions? Do they have the right attitude? I mean, those are basically the things. We're not looking for amazing skills. We're looking for the right mindset. That's what we're looking for. A child who wants to do well and is coming to class, you know, ready to go and wants to learn and all that kind of stuff. And it's a performer. So Tiny Team will forego the auditions. We will probably set up just something like a little, well, it'll be a little bit, so that, because we are going to end up having to do some evaluations with them. So we'll kind of talk to just those tiny parents separately. Tiny Team is a prep team, period. It is, because we don't travel with tinies anyway. So those who are like, well, what is it? It's like, this is prep. This is what it is, because all tinies are prep. This year, we're going to call our Tiny Team prep. Now, if we end up for some crazy reason having an enormous amount of tinies and we need to divide them into 2 teams, then we will divide them into 2 teams where one is prep and one is competitions. That when we go to competitions, they're not competing against each other. But the most tinies we've ever had on Tiny Team is 13. The smallest number is 6. And those are all great. Those were great sizes. So that's kind of where we'll go with that. For everybody else, the first thing that you're going to have to do is fill out an audition form. So that is not ready, and I'll tell you why. Because we have to recreate the wheel. Is basically what Teresa and I have to do. So we're going to have an audition form for you to fill out electronically, so you can fill it out online and indicate all these beautiful answers. In that audition form, you're going to have to tell us conflicts for the week of auditions, conflicts for the summer, and conflicts for the school year. Okay. And we use those conflicts to kind of set the schedule for the rest of the year. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we have had people write down 50 conflicts. We may just have to tell you, you can't do team. That's crazy, you know? And if you say, I would really like all-star practice to be on Mondays between 4 and 6 p.m., we're going to be like, can't do that. I mean, that's like, you got to be a little bit more lenient than that. We have about a little over 100 kids in the last couple of years that we're working around. I think it was like 135 last year. So, you know, bear with us on that one. The audition, so you're going to fill out this audition form with all of your conflicts, and there is an audition fee. It's $35. Okay, it's the same as it was last year. It does include a Power of Dance tank top that we'll give out to the kids, and they'll wear during the year. That audition fee is covering, we have to do choreography for every group, so minis on up through seniors, and we will probably end up doing a couple routines each, because performance team versus competition team may end up having 2 different audition videos. All right, after you are signed up for auditions, you are going to receive a password. If you don't get a password, you need to ask for it and make sure that we have you signed up. Why? Because we need to post these videos online for you to try them, for you to do them. And we're going to be posting them on our website. That is the goal, Okay, now we have found that YouTube likes to block a lot of our stuff. So we may have to be creative with the music. We may have to be creative with what we're doing as far as that goes. But you're going to get that password so that you can get on. Do we want all of our competing teams watching our audition video? No, we really don't. And we also don't want to get in trouble with copyright laws. So that's why it's all password protected. The audition page, we have an audition page set up on our website right now. Now, Teresa, I don't know if, can I screen share?
I believe, I don't know.
Well, you know what? I can screen share, but I don't know. I'm hoping that my video, I can try it. I'm a little afraid, to be honest with you. I'm a little afraid to screen share. I'm gonna try it.
It says you started, Elizabeth.
Can you, okay, awesome. I am going to, okay, so underneath Teams, hopefully you guys can see this. There is a 2020-2021 team audition page, and this is what's going to come up. Now, this is going to be password protected, and there will be videos on here for each style. Now, here's kind of the cool thing, okay? When this is posted, your child actually can watch the videos. Now, there's no way around this. So your child gets to watch the videos, and they may say, but here's the thing. If they say to us, I am going to try out with the junior competition team routine, and then they watch the video and go, oh my gosh, no, I'm not. I want to now do the junior team performance team routine. We have to be notified of that, okay? Because we need to know what routine you're learning is basically what we're saying. And we will have this on a spreadsheet so that we know, because in the end, there's going to be two options. I'm going to stop sharing. Two options for you at auditions. So they're going to learn the routine. The routine will be posted on Sunday night. If you want to jot this down, you can. It is June, I believe, 14th, and it'll be posted by like 3 p.m. Not night, but in the afternoon. Why? We have a couple kids who are involved in some pretty strict things during the week. And it's going to be difficult. I can see your face, lady. I love it. It's going to be difficult for those kids to learn that routine during the week and come to auditions. So if we post that on Sunday night, they're going to get some time to maybe look at it and run through stuff on Sunday night. That routine will be up Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's going to come down on Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Now, originally, Teresa and I had talked about doing auditions on Friday or Saturday. We've gotten a little bit of feedback where people have some conflicts on the weekend that they're going to have a really difficult time scheduling around. So we need to open up some times on Thursday. We are totally fine opening up some times on Thursday. We are willing to be flexible with you, but you guys need to be flexible with us, okay? So understandably so, it's going to be tough if you can't drive your child to the studio on Thursday. So when we ask you like when you can audition, just be real specific with it so that we know. And not when you want to, but when you can. That's what we're going to ask. So it'd be like, check all the boxes. If you can do anytime, say anytime. The goal then is you're going to get two options. You're going to be able to come in to the studio. Literally, Teresa has spent the last 3 days making sure that the studio is a safe place for kids. Meaning
That's why it
that
looks so fabulous right now.
Yeah. So this is why there are no classes posted this week, even though we had hopes of doing it, because we got in there and went, oh my gosh, we have to do this and this and this and this. And it was a lot. And we had to bring in people to put plexiglass around Dawn's desk, even though we're not going to open the lobby, and box off places for the kids to stand so that they're separated from each other, and think of a way that they can get into the building without touching anything, and then getting to their spot and social distancing. But the bottom line is we want the kids to get in the studio. Why? We've seen what they can do at your house, guys. Some of you have great places for them to dance, and some of you, I haven't seen your child dance full out in 2 months. They haven't been able to dance full out, and that's okay. but they're getting crazy. They want to get in the studio and be able to turn and leap and jump and stretch and all those things, okay? So we have a little bit of logistics to figure out before we send out how that's all going to happen. But we will be in small groups. Now, how are we going to get through everybody in 3 days? Well, what's going to happen is it's going to be a virtual audition, meaning that we are not going to sit and take the time to judge all the kids. We will write down little notes, but we're literally going to put them in the studio, say, this is what we want you to do. They are going to be videotaped. Their skills are going to be videotaped. And then we're going to have the next group. So then they go out, we get to clean things that we need to clean, and then the next group is going to come in. Does that make sense? So that's the goal right there. If you are like, okay, I do not want my child going into the studio at this time, we completely understand that. However, we also want it to be as authentic of an audition as possible. If we allow you to just submit a video, you could retape that about 12 times before you get the one that you want and resubmit like 12 times of a video. So what we will ask you to do is we will set up a Zoom session with you and your child so they can audition at home or in whatever location that you want, a different location, but it's going to be on a Zoom call. So we will record it one time. It'll be through Zoom. As long as there's no technical difficulties, you will play your own music so that it's real time and it's nice and loud that they can hear it. And then they will record it on Zoom, and that will be their audition. Does that make sense? Okay. For those of you who are returning All-Stars, there is about a handful of kids every year that are on the bubble for us, where we're like, you know what? We've watched your kids all year. We've given them feedback all year. But every once in a while, there's one child where like, we just don't know. I know she's been with us for 6 years, but we're not 100% sure where she's going to go this year. And those are the kids that, but for the most part, we know where your kids are going to end up. We just do, because we've seen them dance all year long, okay? So keep that in mind too, that if your child comes on and has this crazy mind blank or something weird, we know mostly what they're capable of. It's only going to be a bummer if your child is one of those bubble kids that we were kind of going, not quite sure. That's going to be the tough part, okay? It's not just about skills, although we are going to ask your kids to show us their skills. And when I say skills, I mean tricks. So when, if you're new to the whole program, leaps, turns, and jumps, and some acro skills. We are going to ask to see those leaps, turns, and jumps and acro skills. Some of those skills were the difference between kids making senior team and kids being crossovers last year. You know, if they've got certain skills, but their dance puts them in one level, but this skill in this one area was really great. And, you know, we tried that. Now, one of the questions that you guys asked was in our questionnaire, it was, will there be crossovers this year? And you mean junior crossovers, I'm guessing, juniors to seniors. Two things need to happen. One, we need to see what we actually have at the junior and senior level before we can answer that question. We will put it on the All-Star form if your child is at the junior level, because I think a lot of these questions are coming from youth kids moving to juniors. I mean, I just really do, because I was reading the questions. I'm like, it sounds like a youth kid moving to juniors, a 7th or an 8th grader, and trying to, you know, go, well, what are their options for next year? The second thing we need to do is we need to look at the kids and listen to who was a crossover last year and get their opinion. We need their feedback to us, and we need to take that back before we make the decision. Now, we are not crazy. We understand that for some kids, the crossover experience is awesome, and for some kids, it was not. But that's okay. We want to know, and I'm laughing right now because I can see you crossovers in here, that what it was for you and who you are. We don't want it to be anonymous, really, because who you are and what you can handle and what you can do is going to help us do the right thing for next year's kids. Okay. Some of you thrive on busy. Some of you would live at the studio if we gave you a cot and put it up in the hallway. And some of the kids were just like, I just want to go to football games again. I just want to party with my friends. And okay, those are two totally different juniors, right? That's a two totally different group of kids. So giving us that feedback is going to help us answer the question of, will there be crossovers? We are leaning toward doing crossovers as reserves. Currently, that's what we're leaning toward. But it really is going to depend on what the reserves, kids who were reserves, tell us. What was this experience like for you? I laugh because I see Julia on this call, and Julia, I can't fathom you not dancing the POM routine. Julia danced every part of the POM routine, and it was crazy, but technically she was a reserve. So what does that mean? We had some reserves who danced every competition. We had some reserves who didn't, who never danced at competition. So, you know, we need to look at all of that. All right, so the audition that for basically 2 weeks now, 14th through the 20th. The week following that is technically our recital week. So that recital, we are not going to announce the teams before recital. That would just be crazy. So we won't do that. We'll go through that week. We've had quite a few questions about recital, which we can't answer at this time, so we're not going to get into it. Recital, and hopefully as soon after recital as possible. Can you still hear me? Because I just got to notice that my internet connection is unstable, and that scares the beats out of me.
Yep.
Oh, you know why? Okay, so I'm going to switch my server really quick because I'm on the upstairs server, even though I'm in my basement. So hang on a second. I may get stuck for a sec.
Me too, because I know Inara was a reserve for POM, and I would love some feedback on that too. I mean, it was not in the senior sense, but it's still, you know, youth, and that's important to us too. So if you could send me some feedback, that would be great.
Correct. There were some kick reserves at the junior level too. I think Weegis is on the call.
There was reserves at youth level for kick too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are going to be important to know. All right. So any questions about auditions and that audition process at all? All right. In the chat? Okay. Yeah, Jody, can you put it? I see someone waving their hand. Can you put it in the chat?
Apparently they're having some issues going into the chat, so they may need to unmute themselves.
Okay,
And-
so
Yeah, no, I couldn't put it in the chat. I did have a question as far as, so you said Tinies don't have to do the audition. However, you said there was a $35 audition fee. Do we still pay that, and do we just have that automatically taken out like Dawn would normally take out?
we're not sure. Honestly, Teresa and I decided today that Tiny Team should not audition. That's kind of how things have been, because if someone says to me, it's funny because people are like, well, when did you make that? You know, what are you asking us questions? Someone asked me questions about pictures. No joke. Are we going to get our class pictures? And I went, yeah, but that is not at the height of my list right now. So I would imagine no, that you probably won't be charged $35, but we will. But the kids do get a tank top, so and we want them to get a tank top. So we would probably, charge them at least. Dawn,
it's Dawn. I was going to say, if they're going to get a tank top, we'll have to charge something. Even
Right.
if we don't get an audition fee, there will probably be some sort of fee, though.
Yeah. Well, and the other
Hi,
thing,
everybody. I'm with you all, by the way. Okay, I'm muting myself now.
the other thing is, and I say this with as much love as I can in my heart, I would probably wager to say that the hardest team to coach is Tiny Team. I mean, it is wonderful, it is amazing, and it's a tough team to coach. So we literally had 6 kids in the room, and we had 2 teachers in the room last year. So, you know, whenever we talk about like, oh, was that in Tiny Team included? We're like, yes, we are going to charge Tiny Team. But auditions, probably not. But we literally just talked about it today. So we'll have to get back to you on that. As far as I'm going to be moving on, and the really tough thing now comes to the stuff that we have a difficult time answering these questions. for example, what is going to be required of us for the summer, for summer classes? We are hoping that we will have classes for the 4 weeks of July. Not the week prior to the 4th of July. That would be like our normal 4th of July recess, but for the weeks after that. Those are 4 weeks. What can we do? We have no idea what we can do. We know that this is the tough thing, is Teresa and I sit in meetings with national meetings where there's like 200 coaches, USASF meetings every single week. And these things have come up in conversation every single week. And we are constantly shocked at what other studios are doing, and how much they're charging and what they're allowed to do. We're always like, really? When it comes to practicing, we know that other teams are practicing. We know that other teams, they had auditions. There were some teams who had auditions in March, believe it or not. Some have auditions in April. A lot of them have already started practicing. That doesn't mean that's what you should do. That means that's what our competition is doing. So we do realize that we want to follow the guidelines. We want to follow what the CDC and what Brown County is telling us to do. But we also need to sit down and say, what can we do? What can we do to start getting these kids in athletic shape? Your children are amazing athletes, but they are out of shape. And I bet if we asked them to do their competition, they're going to be huffing and a puffing like it's nobody's business. If we had a regular recital right now, our senior team would throw up at the end of that recital. They would not be able to handle all of those routines, which they've done all year long. So we do need to get them into shape. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we need to start training in the summer. What is that going to be? It may not be choreography. It may be that we're doing strengthening and jumping and leaping and acro. Every kid wants to get back into acro, it seems. Every kid. Problem is acro involves a lot of spotting. You can't do acro without spotters. And so we do need to look at what we can do, what's safe to do. We have to be creative. We're listening to these meetings. A lot of the ASF is cheerleaders, which is constant tumbling. So we're looking at that as well and listening to what they're suggesting that we do for acro. So for the summer, that's going to be a tricky one. We do think that we could socially distance ballet. We do think we could socially distance leaps and turns and jumps. And so those things, we expect to be able to do those in the summer. For our younger ones, we would probably be able to socially distance tumbling because they don't need a runway. They just need a mat. And we have enough little mats that each kid could have their own little mat, and we could do a basic tumbling with some of our kids, which they would love. And if we're wearing gloves and our teachers are wearing masks, and that's kind of how we would go about doing this. So keep that in mind. If you're not comfortable with it, though, we're going to ask you, and you need to let us know what you are comfortable with. Some people have already told us what they are and are not comfortable with. And here's the answer to that. We're going to go with the flow. Okay? We're going to go with the flow. We don't want to say that your child can't dance for the rest of the year on a team because of the way this summer is going and what you are and are not comfortable with and the health of your family. Forget that. We'll figure it out. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to do. But we do need to start something or they're going to be in trouble. As far as the school year goes, probably similar to what they were expected to do last year. So this is what they were expected to do last year. Tiny's practiced 2 hours a week. We would not go longer than an hour with each practice. They practiced Tuesdays and Thursdays for 1 hour, and then they had a 45-minute ballet class that butted up against their Thursday time, so they were at the studio twice a week. Done. Mini All-Stars, we have 2 levels of mini. We have Rising Stars and Shooting Stars. We actually have had 3 levels of mini in the past, if we have enough minis. We generally would have one of those teams has higher requirements than the other team. Oh, by the way, I don't know if we'll go back to tuition in a second. Okay, so the mini team practices 2 times a week. The time of those practices, we may end up having some meetings with those of you who have kids who are currently on Rising Stars and Shooting Stars and asking your opinion. But we always seem to run out of time with especially with Rising Stars. I mean, these kids are trying to get their technique down as well as their routine. And so we may be looking at cutting down on the competitions, but maybe we're not sure yet. Increasing the time in the studio, maybe it was an idea that we're throwing around. We want the feedback from the parents before we do that, but it would allow them to really get their routines and get them some technique down during the year. Then they also have ballet, and usually that ballet can be on the same day as team, but not always. If your child is really good and ballet 1-2, but they're on mini team, it might not butt up next to their regular class, because we'll try to get it what most of the kids have. Leaps, turns, and jumps is an optional class for minis. For youth team, we also had 2 levels of youth last year. We had a youth large and a youth small. They both had the same requirements for team. They're required that they do, it was a 2-hour practice twice a week. One team, I believe, I can't remember what they practiced, Monday and Thursday, I think, and the other one was Tuesday and Friday, but that can change every year. It's really dependent on what your schedule is when you give us your schedule. Either youth or minis is probably going to practice on Friday. Just be aware of that, because we don't have the studio space to get off of Friday. So we need to have something on Friday. And to be honest with you, youth and minis do great on Friday. I know that parents are like, oh, we don't want them on Friday. We like Friday practice. Your kids are more productive on Friday than they are during the week. So we like that. They also have to take ballet, and that depends on what level they pass into. Now, last year, one of our teams was deemed a slightly more travel-ish, and they also were required to take a leaps, turns, and jumps, but we set up an actual leaps, turns, and jumps class for them. We anticipate that will probably happen again. And the other group, it was optional. It was no more expensive or less expensive for either group to do it, but the other group, it was optional, and a lot of them took leaps, turns, and jumps as well. Juniors and seniors are the same. Juniors is just like youth. They practice 2 times a week for 2 hours. They had a leaps, turns, and jumps class, and they have to take ballet. And seniors did practice. If you're going in for seniors, you know what you're up against. I think they did 2 2-hour practices, 1 hour-and-a-half long practice, and then they also had leaps, turns, and jumps and ballet. And a lot of the kids, it was funny because the senior group, they would jump in for each other's practices all the time. Hey, you don't really have to be here. Is it okay if I come and stretch and do this with you? Sure. So I had extra kids in the room doing practices with us. Most of the senior team was on kick, minus like 3 kids. So they also did that. Those are the requirements for the prep teams and the competition teams. The performance teams are practicing once a week and then have ballet. So if you want to cut down on the costs, the lowest one you can do is performance team. They will practice that 1 hour. They will do 2 routines during the year as our goal. Because why can't we say they will definitely do 2? Because they'll do 2. But I'll tell you what, sometimes it's tough. If the kids decide that they have practice once a week and they don't show up to that practice, it gets a little hard to get through those 2 routines. And we had a little bit of difficulty with one of our performance teams getting through the choreography last year. But then they also have ballet, and we would like those kids to take ballet on a different day. And you can say, well, it's more convenient if it's on the same day. Yeah, but it's better for their body if it's on a different day. So that's kind of going to win out. So that's how we did performance team. They dance twice a week, but it's minimal. Then the goal is that prep team. We don't even know if we'll have interest in prep team. So if it's something that you're interested in, it doesn't mean lower level necessarily. It doesn't. It just means that you're not traveling as much. And if Teresa and I want to brainstorm and come up with a different thing than prep team, USASF calls it prep team. So that's why we put it down as prep team. And when we go to competitions, we may have to designate them as our prep team at competitions, because that's the term that they use. They also use elite team and premier team though. So, so just so you know, that's what all of that means. Now, questions on that before I go through costs. If you're raising your hand, Teresa, can you scroll through
I am.
and see if anyone is?
No.
It does say now that the group chat is open. I don't know if it really is or not. Before it said disabled.
I was going to say, can anybody type in the group chat?
I could try. Nope. I can't type in the group chat.
Nobody right now?
Mm-mm. No. Well, if you have a question, kind of go like this. And then Teresa can scroll. Oh, maybe you had to enable it. Oh, yay.
I had to press a completely separate, I had to go through a completely separate team.
Jen,
What's
Jen,
up?
Jen, thanks. Jen Watkey just texted you. Did she enable it? Okay.
No, I did.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So I love how you guys are all in the group chat, but please only ask questions right now in group chat.
Something I did find really quickly here and is that the tinies are from 4 to 6 years old, minis are 5 to 9 years old. And they're going from birth year is what they're proposing to change. Youth from 8 to 12 years old, junior, and we can put this on our website, junior from 10 to 15, senior from 12 to 18, and open is 13 years plus. So your birthday, your eligibility birthday has to be on or before December 31st of 2007. So athletes must be born on or before the dates listed in the eligibility column to be more eligible. So it's funny because that is a lot of kids. That opens the door for a lot of kids for at least our open division for kick. Athletes born in 2004, junior team. This is being, I don't want to get too in depth because it's being proposed from the last things that we have, the last meetings for USASF that we have sat through. There was a really good response with that. So that means that it opens the door for a lot of the younger kids to be able to not only be eligible to move up, but also eligible for open kick. And so that's very, very nice. There's a question, is the prep team local competitions? And that answer is yes.
So, because this was also a question in the preview, that someone asked ahead of time, okay, so as far as competitions go, guys, we are meeting not just with the USASF, but also with the event producers, which is, when we say event producer, we mean DX, Holiday Classic, Dance Fest, that we're meeting with the people who own the companies that create these competitions. And they're asking us a ton of questions. What are we going to do for competitions? The goal for All-Star Performance Team is local competitions. We don't know about overnights. Let's be real. We just don't know. And they don't know about overnights, about what to do about overnight competitions. One of the people who did performance team last year said, will you put competitions earlier in the year so they can do more than one? We'd love to if you were ready. But that performance team has to be ready to compete. And if you're only practicing once a week for an hour and a half, getting a full routine ready early in the year is going to be hard. So just keep that in mind. Last year, we were supposed to compete once in March and twice in April for performance teams. Moving that, and we actually originally had the competition at the end of February. I don't know if you guys remember this. It was like the perfect storm last year. It was terrible. And then that competition got canceled. And so then we had to come up with a new competition. And then, of course, that competition didn't get canceled, but COVID hit that weekend. And so, yeah, it was a series of really awful, unfortunate events that we couldn't control. I swear to, and I mean this on my life, I swear. And anyone who's been with us for ever, and I see a few of you like Navia, who's been with us since she was 6, I think. What are you, 15, 16 now, Navia? We have never had a competition canceled up until last year. That was the first time that since the studio's been open and there were 2 competitions canceled before COVID happened, 2 competitions canceled. That's crazy. So it's never happened before. You can pretty much count on competitions like clockwork, but Bayport, was that last year or the year before? That was canceled, and then the Thunderstruck or whatever that was canceled. It's crazy.
Last year was a little, that last year was a little bit different than most. But
Yeah.
since we're banking on an hour's worth of time here, let's get some questions answered here. If the dates change, does that mean that the kids will age up earlier? Not necessarily, to answer your question, Lauren. It's because they go by dates and they go by year. So it's interesting how they do teams. Is your birthday as of August 31st of a given year? And that is for teams being the tinies, minis, youth, junior, senior. And then they do the open teams or the open elite, open hip hop, all those teams. That is their birth date as of December 31st. So on our forms, when we ask you, like, what is your birth date as of August? And then we also ask you, what's your date of birth? The reason why that is so important is because of those different guidelines. You're also eligible, anyone is eligible for USASF members to submit World's videos in terms of being a junior team. Now, we have not chosen to do that quite yet because financially it's tough. Juniors do not get bids. You have to pay for it 100% on your own. And it's a lot of money. And if it's something that we feel like teams would be really interested in, we would definitely pose that. But when we talk to teams individually every year, it's kind of like one of those things where, you know what, she's looking forward to seniors. So we're not really, that's not on our radar. That doesn't mean it won't change. But even those eligibility guidelines change as well year to year. So that's not necessarily meaning that they will age up earlier. It just means that the age grid was here, and because of COVID, what they're trying to do is either go like this with the age grid. So it's a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older for those kids that didn't necessarily get a chance to have like senior ending, senior graduation, blah, blah, blah. And it might go a little bit younger because you're losing all these kids, and you know, it's just been ideas tossed around, but we will definitely give you further answers to most of that. Another question is, will competitions for prep teams be spread out throughout the season or all at the end like performance team last year? Elizabeth kind of touched on that.
They would be more spread out. If they're practicing like competition teams practice, which is twice a week, they would be ready to dance way before the performance teams would. So performance teams would only go to what we would call studio competitions, which are very different. A studio style competition is very different than an all-star type competition. And the best way of explaining this is if you think of a studio competition and you think of being in an auditorium, being on a stage that way, sitting in like the recital, and there's a whole different panel of judges, and there's a whole different way that they do things. An all-star competition is usually on in a gym or on a built floor, a 40 by 40 square Marley floor. It's more of like a college or high school competition style. And it's different. The requirements are different. The judges are different. It's just completely different. The atmosphere is different. So those are the two different.
A lot more, there's less rules and regulations. It's a lot more lax in my opinion.
Studio styles is more lax. Yes.
Yep.
Which is why the performance team, we are a lot more lenient with what we can do for ages. So here's the thing. If your child let's say your child turns 13 years old and really they're not, we look at them like, oh gosh, they're really not ready for junior team, but she's 13. What can we do? We could still have that child on a youth-ish, like a youth performance team, because the studio competitions don't have those age requirements, where she couldn't do USASF competitions, couldn't do those all-star competitions because USASF requirements are pretty strict and they don't really care. It's like, that's your age, that's it. So anyway, it gives us a little bit of more lenience, and we did have 2 children last year in performance team. One we moved from youth to juniors, and one we moved from juniors to youth because of what their ability was and what
Yep.
their availability was and their mind, how their maturity. So that can easily happen. All right. Here's the tough part, guys. The bigger things that you're asking are cost. Sadly, it's going to be really difficult for me to give you those numbers today. I can tell you what the summer, here's the best I can do for the summer. Our cost for All-Stars is a big discount. Normally, a summer class for us is around, on average, depending on what the class is, how many kids are in the class, and the teacher requirement and all that, between $12 to $16 an hour to take a summer class. All-Stars were paying about $8.50 an hour last year to take summer classes, which is almost 50% discount for some things. So what we would do, because when I calculated out the summer cost last year, is I actually hit that number, got like, what is that, give this big discount to these kids who are taking lots and lots of classes. We're gonna give them a really big discount. And then how many hours of instruction do we have with them? And that's how we did the cost, is absolutely as fair as possible. It's not like I just pulled the number out of my head. That's what's going to happen during the school year too. I printed off my All-Star packet, but it's old and it has a trimester cost on it. I'm so mad at myself. Dawn is with us. Dawn, do you know what a typical All-Star, like a monthly fee was for like a 2-hour, like a youth, junior, senior? Take junior.
I'm sorry, are you talking summer or regular year?
No, I'm talking regular classes, because the summer, ugh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Summer, I have no idea, guys. Summer's going to be tough. I'm going to give you some dates that you have to put in your calendar in just a second, and then we'll talk a little bit about summer. But do you know what like the tuition was, a monthly tuition? I bet half of you do. I have no idea.
I'm gonna log in to Jackrabbit real quick.
I think mine was like $320 a month.
Yeah, but you were in, you can't
Addison's
say
on a
that
lot
though,
of
Katie,
different
because Addison was in Kick. She's in a
Yeah.
bunch of other stuff.
I know. I'm just saying.
So
That
stop talking, Katie.
For a youth kid, are you looking, or?
Well, someone who is just tuition. That's 2 hours. That a 2-hour twice a week practice. That's just tuition. Do you know what their tuition, or do you not have it broken down like that?
I don't have it.
Okay, so hey guys, here's the thing. I will get that out to you. I'm going to put it in writing and put it in the packet and get that out to you and post it on our website. It's one of those things where I thought I was being great and printed it off, and it has all of trimester fees on here, which we haven't had for over a year, so I'm not really sure where I pulled up this crazy old packet, but that's what it says on here. So I have to alter that. Super quick. Will there be competitions to attend? I will almost guarantee there will be competitions to attend, because the event producers do not want to go out of business. So they are going to figure out a way that we can do competitions, and they have literally brainstormed every possible imaginative way to make them safe. I mean, really, some of their ideas, I'm like, wow, that was creative, but they'll figure it out. Will the size of the teams be most likely smaller? Honestly, yeah, probably. We're probably going to have to cap. So just keep that in mind.
So let me just interject something here, Elizabeth.
Yep.
As far as like the competitions and so forth, Dawn, you are so echoey. I'm going to mute you. As far as some of the things that are questions here, super quick, because I know they kind of pertain to what we're discussing. Next winter, if this all happens again, no practice, no competitions, what is the plan or thoughts? I know you don't know, but worry that this will happen again. Maybe I'm the only one worried about this. You are not the only one worried about this, Denise. I know you are not. And we have been, our last meeting with event producers and gym owners was on last week, Thursday. And they are asking a ton of questions that we don't have the answers to. We need to ask you as parents, and so that will eventually come out. But some of the questions was, that they're asking us, When will you start competing? You know, if things are not canceled, how is it going to go? What type of events? Are parents interested in virtual events or just in-person events? They're asking us a lot of questions that really we would appreciate your feedback on. We don't want to answer for you. We don't. Everyone's situation is different. And so as far as if this were to happen again, we don't have the answers to that. We're not going to lie. We don't. But we're going to do the best that we can to keep everyone, number one, in the loop and communicate with you. Number two, I don't think Elizabeth and I, when we kind of voted on some of this stuff, a lot of the Midwest region in terms of competitions were saying that they would not be ready for anything until November. Elizabeth and I find that to be a slight stretch, depending upon what the Badger bounce back program is, because every state is different. So yes, I know that you are not alone in the boat that this could happen again, especially considering they're not talking about a vaccine for, quite some months. And so we are going to have to kind of roll with the punches on this. And Elizabeth and I are discussing with USASF and all these other gym owners and coaches and as to how we make up the best plan to proceed. As far as the next question was about kick auditions happening at the same times and dates as team, how we usually handle, I should say, kick is that we have a kick sequence that the kids always do in their auditions. Most of the kids, to be honest with you, do know that kick sequence. And those of you on this call, I'm sure that I could probably rattle it off to you. Low, low, middle, middle, high, 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 open, low, middle, high, high, low, middle, right? And everybody knows it. So, and if your kid is standing next to you or sitting next to you, they're like, oh, yes, I do know this. And so those auditions usually happen at the same time we look at the kicks, but sometimes we need to meet in person and see how they line up, because kick is a little different. It's not just about if you can kick, keeping your legs straight, staying on count, flexibility, height, all those things do matter. But we will do our best to do that at the same time. Stephanie, thank you for the youth being, you kind of put that in the chat. Everybody should be able to see it. Hopefully I answered a lot of those questions, but in terms of just competitions, because I know you guys are very, your biggest questions are about competitions and cost and so forth. Really, we're in collaboration and we're constantly talking with event producers to see what we can do and how to make things more safe and cost effective and all of that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, but I thought I would answer some of those questions as we were talking about it. So if anyone has something to dovetail in there, hopefully I answered your questions. If not, throw it back in the chat. Okay.
Someone did ask about fundraising. If we have fundraisers, Teresa and I don't have a hand in the fundraising. We actually have someone who is in charge of coordinating the fundraising, because technically we can't. It's legally, we can't have a hand in it. Who's our fundraiser? Do we have a fundraising coordinator?
But Scrip is always running.
Oh, Madeline, she's waving at us.
Well, we have different coordinators per fundraisers. Stephanie is on the call right now. Stephanie, we just does a lot of the script. And so that is open to all the teams. And you get a really good kickback with script. We have what's called a POP group, the Power of Parents group. And so, so with that being said, that information will be sent out once you are placed and once we have a list of everybody, but we only send that out to the people that are on team, because fundraising is strictly for travel expenses. No fundraising goes towards the studio at all. For revenue, tuition, nothing. It goes directly back to the families in terms of travel costs and things like that. Stephanie, if there's something that you wanted to add to that, feel free, jump in, that's okay.
I was just saying it's running all of the time. So there's been only about 6 to 8 families that have taken advantage of it during the quarantine, and they're still earning money, and it runs all summer also. So most people just mail the orders to my house, drop them off at my house, or even just transfer money on Facebook, and it works really easy.
Okay.
Wow. I need script, so I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah, I need some gas cards. I'm all about
People
that.
are earning anywhere from like $50 to $130 a month just in script.
I personally, granted, we drive a lot, and my son goes to school in Milwaukee, and we only get gas cards, and I'm making over $1,000 a year on just doing script. That's my one fundraiser. Yeah. So honest to goodness, please do script. It's a really, even if you just do it for gas, do script. It's super smart and it's awesome. I'm trying to think if there's any, I'm going to give you guys some dates if there's no other.
I'll keep an eye on the chat. If they have questions, they can put them in that. But Elizabeth, why don't you
Okay.
keep going on dates?
So I'm just looking at my calendar. So give me 1 second to pop this open. So the one thing that I can tell you, and this is my, okay, it's, hang tight. Okay, so we do, if your child is on All-Star team or prep team, they would have choreography camp usually in August. I need you to kind of hold off these dates for us, please. So, because what choreography camp is where we basically go crazy and learn a bunch of choreography in a couple weeks. Most likely that will be it almost always is the second and third week. So August 9th, that week, it would be the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. So we do a Monday through Thursday camp with them. And then the next week is the 17th to the 20th. So just tentatively block off those weeks. I mean, this is what we've done in the past. Do we know that that's absolutely going to be able to happen? No, we don't know. The week before that, we will most likely not have anything. So if you're like, hey, when would be a great couple weeks for me to schedule a vacation this summer? That would be one of them. So we will generally not do anything August 3rd through the 7th because all of our teachers are working on our routines and choreography for the next week. The August 24th through the 28th, now that's assuming that school is actually going to start this year. Please, I know my children would freak out if they even heard me say that. So that would be a great day, a great week to have a vacation. And then we also are looking at the very first week of July. So it's June, what is that? June 29th through July 3rd, we won't have classes. So if you're still thinking, I need to get the heck out of Dodge because I'm going to drive myself crazy being in my house any longer, those are great times to go on vacation. But here's the thing. If your vacation is set for July, go on vacation. Seriously, go on vacation. Take it. Take the time with your family. Take the time in July. Go where you need to go. The only thing that's like absolutely totally required is going to be those August dates. Okay, so do we want your kids, should your kids try to make the practices that we have during the summer? Sure. When are those practices going to be? I can tell you what they've been in the past. They've been in the past during the day between noon and 4. But we're scheduling around summer school and night sports, which I don't know if either of those things are even going to be an issue. So we've got a lot up in the air right now, guys. A lot up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Nick, I do. Someone said, I'm hoping that there is an email summarizing this info. There's actually going to be an all-star packet that will summarize this info. So you will have it all in one spot. But this is your time to ask any questions. Anything else, Teresa, that you can think that parents, those of you who've been with us forever, what am I missing? Anything? I'm just kind of scrolling through, looking at pictures of people who are half awake. On Zoom.
The question of, are you able to be open at 100%? No, we are not. Just like, I guess the hard part is that we kind of fall between an educational setting and a gym. And so that is what makes our rules, regulations, our policies, our guidelines, all of that a little bit more tricky. So I have been in contact with the health department quite a bit. So in addition to you know, the CDC guidelines and the Badger Bounce Back program, what we've been really trying to do at the studio is to go and take those recommendations and guidelines and then kind of take them to another degree, because you know, the adults with COVID is one thing, but then you're also adding on to that the child element that you're seeing all over the news and all of that. And so those upper respiratory not syndromes, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but those are out there too. And so what we're trying to do, for example, something that we did today, that, thank you, Dawn, for so much help with this, is that we measured out the studio and put it into, if you can imagine, a grid. And so take a piece of paper, and if you can imagine one of our studios, in that piece of paper, there we are entering the door, we're taking a temperature check. It's a thermal scan, and so the children aren't even allowed in the door right now until their temperature is taken, number one. If they're above a certain degree, I'm sorry, you're going to be sent back to your car. Parents, you are not allowed in at this point. We're being very cautious to make sure that the children are safe. Once you get to the door, and this is all explained in an email, and we will have a YouTube video so that you can see it, okay? Temperature gets scanned. If it's a go, if it's not a go, they go back to the car with you. I'm sorry. If it is a go, then they are allowed in the door. We will have their shoes changed right there. No one goes in the lobby. You will change your shoes right there, and they will be assigned a number, and it's a grid, so it's a pattern. Everyone has a box. They're all separated. They're actually 8 by 8 feet. So we are going above and beyond the 6 foot distancing. Every child is going to have their 8 feet, you know, square to go into. And then there's 2 feet side by side, sometimes 3 up and down, depending upon the measurements of our studio. And so all of that kind of stuff, not to get super detailed and bore any of you guys, but like for when Elizabeth's talking about bringing kids back in for leaps, turns, and jumps and practicing team, trust me, they have their space. It's all mapped out. Like I said, you'll get a video of that, but that's something that we're trying to do that goes above and beyond it. So are we open 100%? No. And we're not going to be until we have further information. But like Elizabeth was saying, our hands are tied too. Who'd have thought Bay Park Square shut down today? You never know what's going on in the world and what's going to happen. And so, you know, even
The world's gone crazy. That's all I gotta say. The world has gone crazy.
Yeah.
What is going on?
We're really working to just keep things as safe as humanly possible. But to dovetail what I was saying, after their class, when they leave, they're getting their hands sanitized again. There's a space for teachers. Teachers are not allowed within a certain distance of the students during class right now. And our capacity is minimum. We are definitely shrinking our class capacity. Studio D is only with 14 kids. Studio A, which you guys both know, all of you know on this call that those are our 2 biggest studios. Our capacity in Studio A is only 12. So I know, and Shaylee's like, what? Because she's in there a lot with Taurus, which is a big team. I know, Lauren, you look confused too, but guess what? We're trying to keep everybody safe, and that's what we're going to do. That's how we're starting, okay? So no, we're not at 100%. Did you say that the week of August 24th was a good week as far as taking a vacation, I'm assuming, Tori?
Yeah, and I actually did answer that already. The first
Okay.
week of July, or when July ending in on July 3rd, and the first and last week in August are good weeks to take vacation because we will not have classes. At least that's the plan. Now, that's the plan, unless everything gets pushed. Someone is asking if we're going to have camp. We can't do camps, guys. If there's going to be camps this year like there was in the past, we cannot do camps. But what we could do during those 4 weeks in July is we could have a class twice a week. So if there's, if we could do, okay, we're going to do, for example, like a leaps, turns, and jumps class, and it's going to meet 2 days this week and 2 days this week. And then so that people have options, because we know that a lot of you guys are going to want to go on vacation and do that kind of stuff in the summer. So I'm going to be a little creative with that summer schedule. Bear with me when that happens. Thank you, Jen. You're super sweet. I've had so much.
The parents, Denise, the no parents possibly in July either. We don't know. That's yet to be determined. we would love to have parents come in. As far as the questions on the recital, we can conclude with that. So give us a little bit of time there.
I think people may be sending questions to just you, Teresa. 'Cause they're not-
Some of them, because some parents are saying, especially those with tiny kids, are saying, "Oh my gosh, wait, I'm not allowed in there," and it's mostly tiny parents. Yeah, I'm going to plug my computer in here really, really quickly. I'm sorry, you get to see a.
Well, here's the
minute.
beautiful thing. Here's the beautiful thing about our studio right now. Number one, every studio has a door to the outside. Number two, every studio has a bunch of windows to the outside. So
Correct.
we can literally open up the studio. We can prop the doors if we really want to. You just can't come in. But could you watch what's going on? Yeah, you probably could. We may need to do it like drive-up style, where you guys have to stay in your car and we block it off and say, these places are reserved for tiny teen parents to drive up and watch their kid dance. But you know what? We're creative. And there's one thing that Zoom classes this year has taught me is go with the flow, because you can't get too caught up in stuff, right?
Right.
Crap
Yeah.
happens. So you just have to deal with it. Just go with it. It's all good. Go with it. Yeah.
Yes, Jen, that was very nice of you. Thank you. And as far as any other questions on All Stars performance team, any of that kind of stuff that we can answer for you, as to the best of our knowledge right now, I should say.
I don't know if this is coming through on my, it looks like it's coming through on the chat on my phone, but not the chat on my computer. So Teresa, you're probably seeing questions that I might not be.
Yeah, I'm seeing some are just coming to me privately, which is okay, because I'm sure other people have the same questions. As far as the recital, including safety measures, recital is a tough word. And I think
Well, hang on one second. Hey
Yeah.
guys, if you have no other questions about actual All Stars, or if you think
Yeah.
you want to exit this and not hear what's going on about the title, don't feel like you're rude. Just,
yes,
that's absolutely fine, and we completely understand that. Just
Yeah.
exit the meeting. This is being recorded, I believe, Teresa, so I will hopefully be able to put this on and go through it and make notes as well. So,
okay. Everyone's like, it's being recorded? Great.
Just this one page, so not everybody. Only certain people are being recorded. Sorry.
This is a great question. So is there going to be a prep team for all age groups? You know what? We wish we could answer that question. We can't have a team of less than X amount of people. Teams are divided by size. And so, in order to have a team, we need 5 or more people. Otherwise, 4 or less, 4 does make you a team this past year. I don't know if they're going to change the regulation with that. We had a quartet of the 4 girls that at times had to compete in the small group division at certain competitions. And so that made them a team. But now if we were to go to the studio competitions, that quartet, I don't believe it would be a team. It would been considered a small group.
Yeah.
And so it really depends upon the number of people that we have per team, per division.
Just because, here's the thing, we have to have interest in it. So let's say we've got 30 kids who want to do youth, and 3 of them want to do prep team. We're not having a prep team.
Mm-hmm.
Could we have 2 youth teams? Absolutely. And they can both be competition travel team. They can both be those competition teams. They don't need to be prep. So it's really one of those things where we're putting the idea out there. And when you're auditioning, you can say, I'm interested in this. And what we're asking is, if you're interested in, if we think that that's the best place for your child, and you're like, yeah, I'd be open to doing prep team or the regular competition team, then put that on there. That doesn't mean that just because you said prep team, we're going to put your kid in prep. That's not what it means. It means that we may look at it and go, okay, that's great, but this is where we think that they fit the best. I mean, just put that on your sheet. What we're anticipating is that people are going to say, I only want to do performance team, or I only want to do all-star travel team. That's what we're anticipating. But we want to have that prep team option out there, and especially for the younger levels. People who would like the training, but don't want to be traveling all over the nation. And we don't anyway, guys. The furthest we traveled last year was Minneapolis. other questions at all? Teresa, are you getting questions about recital?
Just a couple,
Okay.
just a couple.
Are you getting any other questions? Otherwise, you can answer those quick
Nope.
if you want. And I don't know what they
Yeah,
are.
I'm
So
not getting any other questions about teams. But just to wrap that portion of it up, guys, we really, we wish that we had more answers, but some of it's going to have to come from you before event producers give any information to us. It's basically their event producers are asking us as gym owners and studio owners, would your parents do a virtual competition? Would they do only do, you know, the in-person competitions? Would your parents do in-person competitions if they weren't allowed in as spectators? What if every team, I mean, there's a whole gamut of stuff that we're trying to sift through. So once we get more information, we will definitely let you know. Okay.
and I super apologize that the number of surveys we're saying, but when we never see people, how else are you supposed to get information? So you're going to be getting some dinky little surveys. Do your best to look at them and fill them out, because that's really the only way we're going to be able to give feedback to tell these event producers what we want to do.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
okay.
And lastly, the questions about the recital, the interesting thing there is that we do have space. I believe we have a floor now. That was nailed down just recently. We're looking on dimensions and so forth. But as far as an actual recital, like some of you are used to at like the Meyer Theater and so forth, I see people almost about to cry. That is hilarious. I love you. That aspect of it is again, since it's almost, you know, a couple weeks away, a little bit more so, those decisions, our hands are tied as to how many people are allowed in the building at that facility as well, because everybody has their own guidelines to go to. This particular facility that we're looking at has even stricter policies than what is being set forth by Wisconsin and Brown County. So therefore, we have a facility, which is great, and you got to take the good with the bad. So we're working with them and trying to figure out what we can do. I don't want people and kids to get too caught up in the idea that we're having an actual recital. We can't have 700 people watching them like we did every show last year. We may not be able to have more than, you know, 10, 20, if that, spectators. It may be more of a dress rehearsal style. On the bonus part of that, though, is that the kids get to get in their costume, they get to get on a stage, they get to dance their routines that they've worked on. I mean, there is a definite bonus to this, even if it doesn't involve a ton of people watching you. We are doing our best to at least be able to have parents and so forth in there, at least of the little ones right now, but that's where we stand currently. We're not gonna lie, that's where we stand, is that they are limiting us to 10% capacity, and that's their rules, that's their policy. So even though they have a room that has the capacity of 100 people, they're saying you can only have 10 in here, and that's just we have to follow their policy if we want to do this. So
The room has a capacity of over 100 people, just so you all know.
well, that one does. I'm talking about
I know.
descriptive numbers for everybody for easy learning.
Right.
But yeah, so that's not the issue. The issue is getting the kids to be able to get in and, you know, feel their space. Like some of the kick routines right now, we are a contact sport and we cannot be right now. So kick routines, you might not be able to hook up. So we're working through logistics of this right now, but like we were saying, and you all know, the things are changing. Like, what was it? Within 2 hours, the Supreme Court had a ruling, and then, you know, the county overturned it. So we have to just, you know, if things could be different next week, they could be different in 2 weeks. So we don't want to go too far with information because we don't have all of that, you know, detailed information yet. Let's hope that things open up a little bit more than they are right now. But I know that in talking to people from the county and the health department, they're kind of waiting to see what happened during Memorial Day weekend and waiting in that incubation period to see if there's more cases that pop up because of people gathering in large groups over Memorial Day weekend, and some of the photos and pictures and all that stuff that was on social media that I'm sure you saw. So it's a waiting game. So hopefully we'll have answers for you, but I wish we could give you more, guys. It's a waiting game. It's a waiting game. Anyone else have anything though? Okay. Elizabeth, it looks like we are good with questions.
Awesome. Okay, well, if anything comes up, please shoot me an email. If you popped in late, it's elizabeth@powerofdance.com. I will probably just make a commonly asked questions thing and just kind of add stuff as it goes and put the link on our website. Keep checking stuff on the Academy page, guys, because I'm putting all these emails and stuff are going on the Academy page too. Cool. All right. Thank you so much. Please look for an official registration form coming out in the next few days, so that, because this just got you on the meeting, we need to know who's actually auditioning and what your thoughts are as to what you're auditioning for. Sound like a plan? Awesome. We'll try to get the packet out. I'll get the packet out before you're required to fill out the evaluation or the registration.
Yeah.
All right, Teresa, I think you are the person. So, all right. Thanks so much for coming, you guys. We miss you. We miss your kids.
Thank you for all your comments and questions, everybody.
Okay, bye.